All right, YouTubers, let's talk about Jorge Ramos and Donald Trump. Okay, we're going to play this a little bit about what this CNN here is talking about Jorge Ramos, and then we'll go from there.
Is Jorge Ramos a journalistic pit bull, or a publicity hound, or an activist, or somehow all of the above?
Okay, what is he? I think that in this particular case, to me, and I'm Hispanic, I listen to him in Spanish also, pretty much know what he stands for. And I think this was a publicity stunt from Ramos. I think that if you remember back when the Iran deal was announced by President Obama, that a reporter from Fox, I believe, maybe it wasn't Fox, maybe it was ABC or somebody else. Anyway, a reporter asked some really, really nasty question to the president, and he responded to it, but you can still ask those tough questions, but not out of turn. And what Ramos did here was to assume that Trump wasn't going to call on him, and he decided to just make up the time. Whether Ramos actually got this done with with some of his friends, with other reporters, that doesn't make any difference. The bottom line is that basically the way reporting works and press conference works is that you get called and they pick you. Just like Ramos saying, and we're going to talk about it later, that this is not a dictatorship. Exactly. We don't behave like third world country, and that's what Ramos was doing. I don't care what you can say about it, what his objective was. The end does not justify the means. And he will say the same thing. So in this one here, for me, he was first a publicity hound, because this really put his name out there. And second, he is an activist. Let's also face that. Jorge Ramos is more interested. If you listen to his programs in Spanish, he's more interested about how the illegals or immigrant or Mexicans, whatever, do and how they are treated in this country, which they are treated well. And let's face it, he can always go back to Mexico and say how the Guatemalan and the Honduran treated in Mexico. And we don't have to do the same thing. But I'm saying, we know that we have laws in this country. But at the same time, he doesn't care at all. Ramos does not care about enforcing our laws. So for me, he's an activist first and maybe a reporter second or third. I have never seen Ramos once discuss the breaking of our laws. And to me, that is disingenuous of him to do those things. You people never hear him, if you don't speak Spanish and listen to the Spanish news, you never hear Ramos speak the way he speaks in Spanish. He has two personalities. He has his Spanish-speaking personality and his English-speaking personality. So don't forget, this guy here is an advocate. And it's okay to be an advocate as long as you tell everyone that you are.
He is, for sure, this country's best-known Spanish-language broadcaster, with millions of viewers every night. His critics, and Donald Trump's critics, were quick to take sides after this showdown in Iowa on Tuesday.
And sure, everybody's going to take sides. And, if you've been listening to me before, I'm not even close. Well, first, I'm not a Republican. And so I think Trump, to me, is just a clown, un payaso. But anyway, you have to call it the way it is. You cannot only call it for the other side or against the other side. To me, what Ramos did is exactly the way that he wants to behave in third world countries, the way that the elite class behave, treating people like Ramos did in this press conference, but just switching the things around. See, Ramos did what the upper elite class in Latin America treat reporters. But he did it to Trump. And this is what's really interesting, and you better pay attention. He did it because he can get away with it here. See, that's the thing. To me, to be an advocate when there are no risks, and there are no risks for Ramos in the United States, is not the same as being an advocate for change in Venezuela or Korea or North Korea or China. See, that's the difference. I don't value Ramos as an advocate the same as I would somebody in Venezuela trying to do the same thing. He got an easy job. That's why he left Mexico, because he wasn't comfortable there. So let's not forget that. But let's look down here to about some of the things that had transpired after that. Okay. Well, Trump was nasty Trump, like he always does, and he told him to sit down. And he told him in such a way, and that really was offensive to me because he treated Ramos like a dog. At the same time, I don't think that Ramos, after he jumped and did this, put himself on the spotlight, he reacted like a little meek reporter. After he was told to sit down a million times, he wasn't loud enough to me. So at one point you're trying to jump like you're a bully, but then you get bullied all over. Well, I don't understand it. To me, Ramos did a disservice to Hispanics in general by doing this. I know that this is not going to come out right now, but it will hurt us in the long run. And I think Ramos is taking this way past what Trump is, all because he wants to get his name recognition even higher. To me, Ramos is a publicity hog, okay? So here he said he known that was going to be tough. No, it wasn't. You know, see, tough is reporters in Latin America, reporters in Mexico. Those are tough. The one getting killed there. It's not tough in the United States. Just because somebody tells you to sit down, that's nothing. What the hell Ramos been all his life? Where he living? In Hollywood instead of East LA? I don't know. Anyway. Okay, so Ramos said one of his excuses is that he sent a handwritten note to Mr. Trump requesting an interview, and instead of responding to me, he published it online with my cell phone number. Ramos pointed out, well, isn't that what Trump does all the time? So he cannot take it personal. This is what he does all the time. The man is a nut. So a nut behave like a nut. Anyway, so for him, he missed his weekly program on Fusion because he wanted to do this. This gave him more publicity than Fusion ever will. And then he says, Ramos says, his ejection from the press conference. I totally agree that he should have been ejected, because he behaved like an ass. Trump behaved like an ass too, but Trump was the one giving the press conference. Ramos was just a reporter invited there. So he said, my ejection from the press conference, this is the kind of thing that you see in dictatorship, but not in the United States. No, wrong answer. In dictatorship, the reporters don't get in. A reporter like him would have never gotten into the press conference. So he missing apples and oranges. That's what he's mixing. Poor Ramos, he came from Mexico. He couldn't hack it there because he felt that was being oppressed. So he came to the United States, a place where he can do whatever he wants. And he had no consequences for his action, and then he think he had done some sort of heroic thing. No, it's nothing heroic about Ramos. He just do the stupid thing. So anyway, I asked him, you don't really think that if Trump becomes president that people will be kicked out of the White House briefing room, do you? He said, well, we don't know, he answered. That's exactly what he did to me. But it's not the same thing because Ramos will never be in the White House press corps because he doesn't know how to behave. He still has in him his third world ways, and he doesn't understand it. For me, he needs to grow up. I thought that by now, a guy like Ramos would learn a little more. But again, I'm going back to my main thing. I listen to Ramos all the time in Spanish. And what he says in Spanish does not match what he says in English. Ramos does not care about American laws. I am a naturalized citizen like Ramos is. I've spent 30 years in the U.S. Army. I respect my Constitution. I respect our laws. Ramos has no idea what people like myself go through to be able to give him that opportunity. But you cannot try to be an American and then disregard our laws. And Ramos disregards our laws every time he opens his mouth in Univision. That's the way it is. He's an advocate for illegals and for migrants and for whatever you want to call it, okay? That's what he is. And a reporter is second. And that's fine as long as he declares himself to be that. You know, Ramos continues and say, if you don't challenge authority, if you don't challenge power, then what's the reason behind being a reporter? Well, again, you know, see, there's no challenging in the United States. You got freedom of the press. He can write anything he wants, and he does it all the time. Ramos does it all the time at the Univision. So it's not like he's being challenged, you know, at all. See, to me, Ramos wants to be some sort of a heroic figure, but he's not. He's not. He's just a loudmouth, obnoxious guy, just like Trump, okay? Just like Trump. Because Ramos, one thing that you guys don't know is he's a lot tougher to other Latin American countries' government than he is to his own country of Mexico. How do I know that? Because I hear him. I listen to him. I read him in Spanish, and most of you don't. He is tougher with the Guatemalans and the Hondurans and so on than he is with his own Mexico. Yes, he does some good interview in Mexico, but it's not as tough as he says that he is with other countries, unlike he is with Mexico. So, you know, like he said, I'm just a reporter. Well, exactly, that's what he is, but he is also an advocate. He also sounds like an advocate, and that's the way it is. Human rights are involved. Yeah, go. Let's talk about human rights. I mean, I am a much more advocate for human rights than he'll ever be because I have nothing to defend my popularity for. So for him, this is about popularity and publicity. But he should be doing a much tougher job defending human rights in Mexico and Central America than he should be doing about in the United States. Because in the United States, there are plenty of people defending illegals and migrants in whatever. Okay? And let's talk a little bit about one thing before I go. Ramos is one of those defenders of sanctuary cities. I am not, because I spent 30 years in the U.S. Army to protect our Constitution, our laws, and our country. Ramos never did, never will, neither no one in his family. But sanctuary city, to me, is comparable to the death penalty, which I am opposed. I'm opposed to the death penalty. Now, see, you have to understand complex issues. I am opposed to the death penalty because I believe that to err once and kill an innocent person is too much for me to bear. So I am against the death penalty. But on the other hand, sanctuary cities are the opposite of the death penalty. And the same people like Ramos that... But you see, here's the hypocrisy of people like Ramos, that they are opposed to the death penalty like myself, because we cannot err once on it. But they are for sanctuary cities that, like it happened in California, and it had happened in many other places before, you know, we can, because they want to protect criminals, okay? It's not just protecting migrants, because when you throw a blanket, it covers everyone. Protecting criminals, and to me, to err once on that criminal and have an innocent person die is as much a moral act as the death penalty killing an innocent person. So Ramos, if you're listening to this, it's the same thing. Sanctuary City and the death penalty, if they err once and an innocent die, it's on us. So I hope that you guys that believe that the death penalty is immoral also realize that sanctuary cities, the way it's done now, is also immoral because it doesn't only protect the innocent, but also protect the guilty against the innocent. Have a great day, everyone. I will, always.